p.m. and I want to welcome you to this regular meeting of the Fargo Board of Education. It is 5:30 and this meeting is called to order. We begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I will now look for an approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Robin and a second from Nikki. Any discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposition, same sign. And then also, just for the record, I want to note that Allie Ohlenberger is joining us online. Dr. Jeff McKenna is also online with us too tonight. Okay, and then this brings us to the recognition of audience. We do not have anyone signed up for that this evening, so we move right into our FEA report, and I see Ms. Haugen Christensen. Welcome.
I feel like it helps if I wear the shirt. It's Red, White, and Blue Day today at South for Homecoming Week. I don't know if you realize my job for Fargo schools, 60% I'm in the classroom, and then for 40% of my day, FEA reimburses Fargo District of my compensation. And it's kind of funny because I really do have to shift mindsets between my little drive from South High to our office is at the our NDU office, and it's not always enough time to make that shift. So kind of working, eating my lunch, and figuring out what's different. And so much of the time, it's kind of the same thing. My sophomores right now, we're reading Antigone. And one of the things we've been looking at is even in this ancient foreign world and community, we've got a lot of value match, and we're doing a lot of exploring what's important to us and how can we tell what's important to other people. And then what I've been doing now, starting out the year, meeting with Doctors Fremstead and McKenna and Gandhi, and I just had a quick ad hoc meeting with Eidsness. And I feel like a lot of what I'm doing, I've met with some principals, visiting around schools, is looking at, okay, what's important to us? What do we have in common? How do we work together? And you might be getting tired of hearing me say that, but I'm going to keep saying it. We are one team. We all do work together. I really appreciate the trust you place in your staff, and we return that trust. That's it.
Thank you very much. And next, we will move to Dr. Gandhi.
Thank you. I'll go to the first agenda item under the admin report, strategic plan reflections, and just see if any board members have any questions on the strategic plan reflections that were provided in your packet. If not, I just have, oh yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the very thorough report. It took a long time to read, but it was very very comprehensive. I appreciate your transparency. My lone question is on page 18 in the cooperative work experiences section. What is the big five? And I apologize if I missed that in cross-checking things.
No problem. I'm just gonna pull it up here so I make sure that I answer it correctly. So I do know that within the North Dakota Career and Technical Education Department, they offer, one of the things that they use for RCT courses is called a Career Readiness Practices Rubric. And that has 5 elements to it. And I have an email from Dr. Jonas with what it is. I just need to find it real quick. But it is based off of the Career Readiness Practice Rubric that's provided by the CTE department that we use to assess the skills in our CTE classes. It's essentially a way to say, what are the skills that are common in all CTE classes to track proficiency in a way that we wouldn't do in an academic content area.
That's helpful. So it comes out of CTE.
Yes, ma'am, and I have them right here. So they are being a responsible employee, technical skills, communication, problem solving, and teamwork.
Thank you. That answers my question.
No problem.
Do we have any other discussions or questions?
If not, I just had a couple of quick other miscellaneous items on the admin report. If there's no other questions on the strategic plan reflection. One thing I just wanted to share with the board is I think tonight, obviously under the business items, we're going to do a budget approval. Extremely grateful for Jackie and her leadership and her team. One of the things that I'm very excited about that you'll see in our budget presentation is actually we're getting there. I think we're going to get more and more granular over time, but actually a budget breakdown based on strategic initiatives. And I think that's pretty big. But in addition to some of this work, we have also emphasized why it's important for the board to look at local measures for student achievement to truly get a snapshot of where we are as a district. And I just want to provide some context around why. So this Monday is the first time North Dakota Insights website was updated with this past year's data. And just to kind of tell you or emphasize some of the challenges that we've had over the past couple of years that we've talked about. The way the process works is I've shared with you in the past the STARS reporting system and some of the concerns that we have there and how over the past couple of years our graduation rates and some of the other pieces have been underreported. Well, DPI gives you a deadline for each school to check and verify their data before it's publicly posted. The deadline was last Friday to give all of the data back to DPI, which we did, but nothing changed when they went live on Monday this morning or yesterday morning as well. Additionally, our team and our staff have been working tremendously with DPI in terms of how do we accurately portray what's happening in our district. And then we were told some things. Not only I don't think the feedback has been incorporated yet because the data hasn't been updated on what's the publicly available website. DPI had also told us that they've started making exceptions for small schools, smaller school districts across the state when it comes to dropouts. So the standard that we've been using to code students for dropout, where in Fargo Public Schools, our practice based on previous guidance from DPI has always been, a student's considered a dropout, which counts against our accountability points, unless we have a verification of records from another school district. Well, DPI just told us earlier this week or last week, that for other small school districts, because the impact would be so big because their end sizes are so small, that they're not counting those students as dropouts, so they're just counting them as transfers. That's a significant shift. So I think that this just again further emphasizes that you'll see a lot of publications coming out regarding accountability scores and North Dakota Insights dashboards. Please know that some of the data is very concerning for Fargo. We're working with DPI. We are grateful that they're setting up a meeting with us and they want to focus on fixing it down the road. But a lot of the data points are being used publicly are not truly accurate. So again, I'm going to emphasize that as we move forward, reach out to Bob, Missy, or I regarding our student performance data or any of our pieces of data. But also let's continue to focus on the local data that we're tracking in our strategic plan because that's going to be more accurate.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to clarify, I know the answer to this. When you have such a small population, it's easy to identify who's dropped out. Therefore, it's not reported. Is that correct?
Well, so normal practice for data privacy is that if you ever have less than 20 students, you don't report that. But that's actually not the case here. What the case here was for DPI had sent out guidance a while back that all school districts were following that said, unless you have record from a request for records from another school, a student is considered a dropout once they withdraw. And then once we get the verification of records, that student becomes a transfer out. Transfers out don't count against you, dropouts do. When it comes to accountability, well, there's many times where students will withdraw from a school district and we won't get a verification of record because some school districts, they just may not do that. Or the parents might give them a report card or what the case is. Well, Fargo has always operated under the premise that those students are counting towards our dropout rate, which is a double negative because it also counts against your graduation rate. So it's really filtering too bad. Last week, DPI was like, yeah, that has been our expectation, but for many small schools, because one student in a school of 100 students could be 1%, We just decided that we're going to code all of them, allow them to code them as transfer outs that don't count against their dropout and don't count against their graduation. And Missy has a correction.
Well, I guess the only thing is they decided that they want a process for us to be able to say they're transferred out. So it's not, you just can't just do it because you want to. You have to document that you've worked very hard to try to reach the family to get the transfer of records or verify where they are. What I did find out is there are a few states that their homeschool policy does not require a records transfer, and you'd never get one. And so they're also struggling with the states around us changing. We also have more mobility in our whole country, and we have many people that actually will go back to a home country, and they also do not request records transfers. So then we have to show that we're documenting correctly, working diligently to reach the family and close that loop if at all possible, because we'd never want a missing child situation as we go forward. But DPI, I guess we did not realize that was an option until we really started digging in last week.
And then the challenge with having differing standards and us holding ourselves to a higher standard is that not only is it impacting two different buckets of our data, but those datas are part of an accountability system that is based on a comparison to other schools. So TSI and Comprehensive School and Support and CSI are identified in the state of North Dakota by the bottom 5 and bottom 10% of the schools in that level, middle school, high school, elementary school, every year. So not only is the data point going down for us compared to someone else where that student's not counting negatively against them, now it's also counting against putting us when we're ranking ourselves against other schools, which I don't think is accurate either.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Other comments or questions? Okay, let us move on now to the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of the consent agenda from Nikki and a second from Greg. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Anyone, any opposition, same sign. Okay, and that passes 9-0, or 8-0, I guess. Next, that moves us to item number 7, which is business, and I believe this is going to come to us from the Planning Committee, and Greg Clark will introduce it.
Thank you. So really, this budget is not really a surprise, right? We've been working on this, and I say we as in, Jackie and her team have been working on this for the entire calendar year, but the board has also seen this several times at this point. We passed our preliminary budget 3-4 months ago. We've had a planning committee has seen updates to this. We had our public hearing at our last board meeting, and really there shouldn't be any surprises. I'm not surprised by anything in this budget at this point. Hopefully no one else is very surprised at anything in this budget because the process has been going on for quite some time. It's been very transparent, and Jackie does have a short presentation for us, but really I don't expect any surprises because we've been working towards this point for several months.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and take your PowerPoint presentation, and then we can look for a motion and then do some discussion after that.
Great. And I'll go quickly through some of the slides. They're more of an overview, so if you want to take a look closer. But starting off with what we do for our community and our families, with the number of students we have, the number of people we employ, and we always like to throw in the number of meals that we serve, which is a staggering amount, as well as how many rides and miles we transport our kids. A little bit of the legalities behind our budgets. So we have to, by August 10th, provide our preliminary certification to the county and give them our budget hearing notice, which of course we had our budget hearing last board meeting for that. And then there's a century code regarding our levies. And this one just states that between August 10th and October 10th, you are allowed to adjust that initial certification. And because things change right within there, and a couple months can make a lot of difference sometimes. So the deadline is October 10th, which is why we have the approval before us tonight. And once that is sent in, we cannot amend or change anything with the levy. Doesn't mean we can't change our own budget, you know, and do revisions throughout the year with that. What we also have to do is at the end of June, we have to submit state aid. For state aid, we have to submit our count, our average daily membership of our students, because that is the information that is used then to pay us the following year. So our June 30, 2024 membership is what figures into how we will be paid and how much for this fiscal year. A little history there too, so you can kind of see some of the trends. Then we also have our executive limitation, EL7, that we follow as well, which is your summary format, which is what is in the board memo, which is down to the legal level, the lowest legal level of approval, which for us is by that object type category. All right, so we'll get into the general fund budget. We have a summary, this is a summary graph, basically showing that we anticipate that the general fund budget, both expenditure and revenue, will be lower than it was in the previous year, mostly due to the ending of COVID and the significant federal funding that we had at that for the last couple of years. Our revenues by sources for the general fund remain with state aid being the highest source, although it is ticking down a little bit, and our local revenue sources are creeping up as we go forward here. And then this slide is a presentation of our historical revenues. I think it does show a little bit of that, where you can see in fiscal 2025, the yellow share, which is federal, really is kind of back to where it was 5-6 years ago. But if you notice, the state share is a little smaller and our local share is getting larger. So the changes that are before you from the preliminary to adoptive budget, levies are the same. The levy is the same. We are levying 126.78 mills, which is no change. We've been at that for quite some time. Have some adjustments to the tax credits that come through. There was a slight decrease in the estimated valuation from the county. So the final budget is based on a 5% with a 95% collection rate. We do need to watch this and monitor it, as the last year we only collected 91% of that current year tax. Doesn't mean we won't get the money, we just don't get it in the current year as people pay. Local revenue adjustments were for tuition. This one is always a little bit of a guess, as children or students are placed throughout the year with us and with others as well. Projecting interest income to remain steady now that the feds just dropped the rates, so we hope no more than they have currently for the year. And then we did close on our vocational ed houses that were built in the prior year. We closed on them all in July here, so that revenue is now hitting this year instead of last year. For state revenue, there were some adjustments based on that final ADM.
Can we pause for a second? Yeah, Robin had, I think, a question about.
What did you budget for your interest rates?
They're at 4.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Lowering.
we'll hope and
Okay.
hope
Thank
we
you.
can continue. Yeah, and we do have most of our funds invested in a money market.
Okay.
Um,
So that's good for a money market.
get a better rate with that typically and don't tie up our money. So,
Thanks.
yep, you bet. Sorry, just holler. State revenue then adjusted for that final ADM that we submitted to the state. Do want you to know that that isn't, what we submitted isn't necessarily the final. That doesn't actually happen until November, once the state kind of goes through it all. We have the on-time enrollment factors, which are in play now, and then some of those, the big thing that hits that state formula is our 60 mil property tax offset. And since we had such a large increase in property value last year, that affects our offset for this year and decreases that state aid a little more. And then our transportation aid is projecting to increase because we did have increased rides. It's based on prior year as well. Federal revenue is just lower because of ESSER. This budget contains about 16 million, which the majority is made up of what we call our consolidated app, which are our title funds. And those are all formulary through the state. The other large grant is our IDEA B, our federal special ed grant as well. And then the rest are kind of that miscellaneous. At the end of the year, so into this year, we only had around $400,000 of ESSER 3 remaining, and that has been spent, so we will be closing that out at the end of September. Then for general fund expenditures, just to give you that breakdown of what the piece of the pie looks like, we are tracking at 80% for salary and benefits, which has been very, very consistent for us for quite a long time. And you can see that in this historical presentation, really looks very, very consistent from year to year for the last many years.
Is now joining.
For the changes from your preliminary approval till now for expenditures, really for salaries and benefits, it's a lot of a tweaking, what I would call. We finalize our FTEs, we make sure, we often have changes in positions between if they're funded through grants or the general fund. There just tends to be a lot of maneuvering as we really get people in place for the year. And then we do also expect a few decreases in some benefits as we will be transitioning to a different carrier as we went out to bid for life and disability insurance. So that is a little nice plus. And then for purchase services, we added some costs for the pre-bond referendum study that was approved to take place. And then we finalized our contracted services for nursing through Cass Public Health, our school resource officers, and then the therapeutic services at Explorer Academy as well. Supplies, some adjustments to utilities. Just took a look at some of that historical data and trend, and I'm hoping for a good winter again. I'm sure we all are. And then there is a new literacy curriculum coming out, so we increased some textbooks for that. And then the final item is our transfers. Really, the general fund pays for the net of our student activities fund, and so as that budget is finalized, it affects that final transfer as well. This is the chart, this is the one that Dr. Gandhi probably likes the best in this whole slideshow. And thanks to Bill and the IT department for helping to put this together. So this is how we will be tracking our alignment to the strategic plan, and it will be provided to you through Cascade as we go throughout the year. I would like you to just notice that we're using just the general fund without grants for this, because that's how we started the process this year with alignment. And then it will be tracked by staff expenditures versus non, and then what the percentage is to the measure. Just want you to know that many people are tied to multiple measures. And so it's going to, the totals that you will see for the initiatives are going to quickly surpass the $193 million because of that. It's not an error, that is what will happen. Yep, I'll get back to my, and then last but not least for the general fund, the fund balance, we ended 2024 just shy or just over 39 million, which is around 20% of the projected expenditures for this year. As you recall, we have a 15% minimum that we must maintain, and just want to remind everybody that that is very important, especially if we are looking in the future to issue bonds. They really, really look at your fund balance as a source of your stability. I think that's going to end my general fund. Do you have questions on the general fund before we go to the building fund?
I do. I want to comment on your fund balance. I think something that's happening right now at the city level is very instructive. Their Moody's rating was just lowered. Therefore, when you're it's like a credit score. So when you go out to borrow money or bond for building new facilities, you borrow at a higher interest rate. And so this is a responsible fund balance, and our policies say 15 to 25% of our budget should be in that fund balance. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep saying this, but this is very important coming up on our bond referendum. So this is excellent financial management by the planning committee and by the accounting department. And I'm going to keep saying it, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. You are absolutely right. Okay, building fund adopted budget. Just a reminder of the sources and uses of funds for the building fund. It's to construct and renovate our buildings. There's no change to the mills we are levying, which is 15. The sources here for revenue coming in are property taxes, bond sales, interest income, and then we do have a transfer from the special levy. Then, of course, uses are for those things related to construction and renovation. Just like everyone to also know that we cannot use that money for operating purposes. It is strictly for construction. And the summary chart of historical budgeted revenue and expenses, this fund can really fluctuate just depending on what is going on, right? With what projects we have and if we bonded or not. And as you can kind of see here with the split of what would be other sources and revenue from local sources, it's really that dependent on if we issued bonds in those years, and the last two we haven't. Every year prior to that we have issued bonds, so we've taken a little bit of break as we gear up for what needs to happen going forward. And again, expenditures, historical expenditures by the type, this again can fluctuate. 2023 is when we bought land, the Southwest land, so you can see there's a large blue piece there, and that's what's represented there. And the changes that have occurred then, just along with the estimates for property taxes, just looking at those tax credits, and we've seen that significant increase, I think, in people take advantage of both the homestead and the vets tax credits, which is very good. And then we had some increases as we did sell the district office in July. That hits this year. We had the related realtor fees. Tara doesn't charge us for her services. And then some additional contracted maintenance that came up that we are including for the coming year. Fund balance with the building fund will be projected to be over 20 million still as we go forward. And we are funding more of our deferred maintenance than we have in the past, utilizing the building fund, so we can start to tick off some of those items that need to be taken care of. Okay, building fund, any questions? Okay, on to special assessments. The rest are small, right? The rest of the funds. Special assessments, this is just the historical piece of that. What looks like in 2025 is that we intend to pay off all of our outstanding specials, which is really the main one is EdClap, which is, I believe, just over $500,000 that we have remaining to pay off there. The fund is levied at a mill. There's no change to that. Some tweaks for those tax credits. And the fund at the end then we do anticipate will go down because we are paying off those outstanding specials to get us in that a good point with those. Okay, any questions, special assessments?
Just to highlight, the special assessments comes up in the legislative session for double taxation. So that might come up again this session. GAC members.
So our special levy fund, this fund is kind of consistent, right? From a historical perspective. It's levied at 11.35 mils, no change to that. Again, some tax credit adjustments for revenue. What this fund does is, as the money comes in, we do that transfer from here over to the building fund to assist with those deferred maintenance projects to be hopefully completed during the year. Some of them will extend into multiple years. So the fund balance here has recently, more than historically, we've been trying to keep it fairly low as we need those dollars in the building fund for projects. Again, these are the short ones. So special levy, any questions? We'll go on to debt service. Debt service is just that. It is used to pay off our debt. What occurs is the transfers come in. All of our debt right now is issued through the building fund or was issued through the building fund. So the transfers come from there into this fund to make the principal and interest payments. Yep, really no changes actually at all in the proposed budget here. And we do not carry a fund balance in the building fund or in the debt service fund. And then last but certainly not least, our nutrition services fund. This is the summary chart, kind of just showing what has occurred in the past few years. I think it has been managed extremely well by Cindy through all of the changes that have occurred, which we will see coming up on some of the future slides here. Their revenue, the majority comes from federal sources, which is meal program revenue from the government. And then the next highest source is from our meal charges to families to pay for those meals. Historical revenue is, this is the interesting one, I think, a little bit, where you can see definitely where meals were paid for by the federal government during COVID in 21 and 22, particularly in how that now has dropped off. And we are really returning to what would be considered normal operations in that fund.
Hey, Jackie, I have a quick question. Can you go back one more? Where it says revenue from state sources, that 2.1, that's how much money the state gives us for?
Under the meal program as well, there's some reimbursement there. And then last legislative session, they moved the poverty to 200%. Am I
Right.
right on
From
that?
140 to 200.
To pick up a few more families within that as
So
well.
that's showing that increase.
Yes,
So the
that
increase because of that new legislation put us
Yeah,
at 2.1%.
Yes, put us there. It's not, it wasn't a significant change with that adjustment, just from the number of families that fell into that area, but every bit is helpful, obviously, for
I
our families.
agree with you 100%. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't expect this answer tonight, but we're going to be working on this again. I would like to know eventually how many families this affected, bumping the poverty rate from 140 to 200.
Yep,
you
we
don't
can
mind.
certainly give you that. I'm sure Cindy, if she was here, she would know it off the top of her head.
No rush.
Okay, any other questions related to nutrition services? I know you're not done. You still have more slides, but just wanted to check. Okay, thanks.
As we get into expenditures, actually the highest portion of expenditures in the nutrition services fund is food, milk, and beverages that we serve to our students, followed by salaries and benefits for our staff. And again, I think just looking at the historical perspective of these object areas, you can see it's actually, from an expense standpoint, although revenues really fluctuated, the expenditures haven't really fluctuated that much and have remained pretty consistent in how they're distributed throughout the fund as we spend our money. So changes to the Nutrition Services Fund, just some minor revenue adjustments that took place. And then we did include in the final budget, they have one grant, they get a specific grant through the federal government, which is the Fresh Fruits and Vegetable Program. So that has been added in as we have what our allocation will be. And expenditures, similar to the general fund, just kind of getting things finalized. And then, of course, we do expect increases to food purchases and our dairy products. And then again, we can claim indirect costs on our federal grants like that, so that becomes funding we can use that offsets our administrative work on those grants as well, and that's included. Fund balance for the Nutrition Services Fund. They have a requirement themselves that they are not to exceed 3 months' average expenses at any time. Our Nutrition Services Department runs extremely well, and so we tend to get penalized for that through this. And we, every year, have to submit a plan to the state as to how we're going to get our balance down in order to be in compliance with this. It's not necessarily an item that somebody's gonna come in and say, this is it, but we do have to have that plan, and we've continued to make those plans. Oftentimes, it is, we use that to upgrade some of our, equipment, and keep on top of things with that. This year for Cindy as well, we, are really hopeful that she can staff much better than she has the past few years. Still has quite a few vacancies, but is an improvement, right, over what it's been. And so that has, that's part of our plan as well, included in getting that fund balance down. She's not extremely over, but it's just an area that we have to respond to the state every year.
I gotta say something.
You go ahead.
So the problem is we're required to charge a minimum amount for the meals. But in order to spend our fund balance down, that's the catch-22 here. Right?
Absolutely.
So we would love to charge less for the meals, but we're required by the feds, due to their funding, to charge a certain amount.
To have a minimum increase every year, no matter what, yes.
Thank you. I knew the
Correct.
answer to that, but I think it's important to explain.
That is an excellent point. That brings me to the end of my slide. I'm going to do a little plug. We have recently launched a transparency center on the Business Services Department page of our public website. That will include all of our current finances, right? What's happening. It will be updated monthly with year to date. The slides or the graphs that are in this presentation are part of another piece of that, which is called our digital budget book. That we will also be launching. I believe Tyler is going to turn it on for me tomorrow. Wanted to make sure that there was approval tonight. I got it down to 170 pages, I think. But the good thing is you can go online. The public will be able to drill down. They'll be able to look at different funds. They'll be able to see all of these graphs, expenditures by the building that we've allocated. Things that we don't get into that much detail here will be available for viewing there. So we're really excited about that. And with that, I will be done and have any questions for you all.
Do we have other questions for Jackie? Greg, go ahead.
I had one. I think the second or third time I've heard you mention that the property tax collection rates, where we aim or assume we're going to collect 95% eventually, and that last year it was 91%, but we expect that to trickle in eventually. Have we seen so far that trickling in actually happening yet? Or like what sort of delayed collection, should we expect?
When we get to approval of our audit, I will make sure that we point out a page in the informational section which does show for the last, I think, 10 years what the actual collection ends up being. It does get really close to 100%. However, it could take 3 or 4 or 5 years to get there. This past year was the first year it's really been that low of a collection in the current year for taxes. So we really won't know payments when the early payment comes, when you get your property tax statements and they're made. How many people, usually the 5% discount is because of early payment, right? Because everyone that can at that time will take advantage of that discounted payment. But we're just seeing more with the probably delinquent taxes as well. So we will in the spring or after December, we'll know a little more with where we think we're sitting with that final collection or current year collection in 2025. We will need to watch it and see if that's a trend that's going to hold.
Do you accrue a 95% on the balance sheet?
No, that is based on actual that we receive. So what we receive in the current year, and then we do have one adjusting entry at the end of the year that will place in for what hasn't been collected and if there's a large amount of deferred out there that we expect to
So
receive.
it's not a receivable on the balance sheet? till the end of
There
the
is
year?
a deferred receivable. And it will sit out there, but it doesn't quite hit the general fund in the method that you would think. It hits our government-wide statements, which is a whole nother conversation, and not the individual fund statement with that.
I need time to process that, but thank you.
You will, yeah, we can point it out, I think, again, as we close the audit for the year, the auditors are here this week. There can be more conversation on that and how that affects the ending financial statements that we have.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions for Jackie? Greg?
I'd like to move that we adopt the final budgets levying a total of 154.13 mills for the 24-25 school year and instruct administration to submit the certificate of levy to the county auditor.
Okay, so we have a motion from Greg and a second from Jason. Any discussion or questions within the board? No? All right, Tara, are you ready?
I am. No amendments to amendments.
Yep, it's your big moment.
All right, Clark,
Yes.
Day, Day, Gullickson,
Yes.
Jason Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Nelson,
Yes.
Robin Nelson,
Yes.
Allenberg,
Yes.
President Christensen Minear.
Yes.
That is 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion passes. And thank you very much, Jackie, to your team for working on this, and Greg also for the planning committee and bringing this to us so well prepared. Okay, so then this moves us to our board reports. The first one on our agenda here is the committee work goals, and I'm going to start with Robin.
Okay, Governmental Affairs Committee has an incredible work plan for the year, do we not? We have it calendared out for the entire year as much as what we can anticipate per agenda. Just a couple highlights for the board that we want you to be aware of. We are planning an informational session for legislators that will be serving in the 2025 legislative session. Typically, we'll do that in November, and at that time, we will present our position document that will come before the board for prior approval. That is very well attended by our legislators. And then we can also plan on a meeting in Bismarck, typically, well, I think we're thinking about February 28th is when crossover is, where we'll be back out in Bismarck. We're going to go to Bismarck for that one. The other one is local, to visit with our legislators. I did put an ask out to West Fargo Public Schools. They will likely want to participate in that as well. But we've got a pretty prescribed work plan, and I think this is pretty typical, and we're ready. We are ready for the 2025 legislative session.
Thank you, Robin. And I would echo that. She's very good with the calendars and the planning there, so thank you very much. Greg, can I go to you next?
Yeah, so planning committee doesn't really have any updates since planning committee hasn't met since our last board meeting, when I kind of gave some updates, but broadly speaking, the work for this year is going to be long-range facilities plan, more long-range facilities plan and fitting other stuff in between the cracks when we can. I guess as a highlight to that, the planning committee meets next Thursday, and one of the big topics we're going to be discussing is a survey that's going to go out to the community to get community sentiment on the long-range facilities plan and the potential bond referendum.
And if I'm correct, board members are allowed to participate in that conversation, correct?
Yes, all are welcome. And in this particular planning committee meeting, no prior permission needed for board members to participate.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Nikki?
And due to availability, the CEA committee has not met yet, but we will on October 1st. So we will be crafting that plan. I do expect to be reasonably busy this year with several of the things that Greg mentioned with the long-range facilities plan and all the pieces and parts that move right around with it. So I'll have more next time.
Okay, thank you very much. And Melissa isn't here, so we will not, we don't have an update from her for negotiations. I can share for governance, we did meet on, I think it was August, oh no, when was the last time we met? The date doesn't matter. But what I will share is at every single meeting, we do monitor any of the proposed changes, policy changes that come to us. And then we also, as a committee, we work on our schedule. So we schedule out the agendas in these meetings that we have here. At our last particular meeting, we were talking about, we know that there is some interest in a little more training and development when it comes to policy monitoring. And we decided that the best way to do this would probably be in small chunks, like a 30 or 45-minute training right after a board meeting when we have kind of a smaller agenda. Most of us should have these dates and times blocked off on our calendars already. So if we have a short agenda, it would naturally kind of make sense for us to stay afterwards for that. So be on the lookout for that as more communication will be coming out. Next on our agenda here is the committee liaison and correspondent reports. So this is where we'll go around individually and share our work, anything outside of the committees that occurred. And is it okay if I start with you, Jason?
Yes, and I don't have anything to report this time.
Okay, thank you. Nikki?
You've already mentioned governance, and I have nothing additional.
Robin?
Sure, I had an onboarding for new board members for SEEK today. So it was myself and two superintendents. It took a total of 20 minutes to overview policy governance and then board duties versus staff duties. So I got about 45 minutes back in my day. Today, for GAC-related stuff, the Interim Education Committee met today. There was a presentation from Superintendent Blaisler regarding the strategic plan, strategic vision, and collaborative report. A presentation regarding virtual learning provided by the virtual learning is something that we use through the North Dakota Center for Distance Ed, and it included 10 school districts that are using that. And then the third item was school choice model study, and there was a listening session and public feedback. I believe that my colleague Kristen Nelson had a chance to watch that. I have not yet, but I will provide an overview at our Thursday meeting. So thank you, Kristen, for taking the time, real time, to watch that very exciting committee meeting. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Greg?
Really, the only thing I have to report is I had coffee with Laura Haugen Christensen last week. I think it was last week. I don't know. Time is a blur, but really, we just kind of discussed how we can kind of work together. You know, as she said earlier, one team, one goal, on for how we can really get some good work done in the upcoming year.
Thank you. Kristen?
Yeah, I had a tour at Explorers Academy on Friday, which was fantastic and truly eye-opening what we could do in education for learners who aren't necessarily successful in a traditional model and what that looks like in that building. And I was talking to Dr. Lean and the dean of students or associate dean of students that there's a lot of hard work that goes on there, but there's also they do have time to have a lot of fun. For example, since it was a Friday, it was a kind of a more relaxed day, but one child saved all of his little gotcha bucks. He had to save 1,000 points, and his prize was pieing his teacher in the face. And I got to be there for that, and it was so funny, and they were so excited and so fun. So that was exciting. It was just wonderful to see that. But then, as Robin mentioned, I was able to listen to the interim education committee meeting today. It was really interesting to hear how other districts use their virtual learning, what they see as the value there, because it's truly different from the big schools that presented to the little teeny tiny ones that presented. And I want to shout out Missy and Holly Feckner for their presentation today. You really shined a spotlight on the good work Fargo Public Schools is doing to that committee and anybody who is listening. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to move online now. Allie?
Nothing to report on my end. Thank you.
Okay, and how about Namal? Okay. We will go ahead then and, did you want to?
Yes, one more thing. Happy birthday, Allie.
Yay. Happy birthday, Allie. Yeah. So I'll move into our president's report. Since our last meeting, I was able to have my one-on-one with Dr. Gandhi. And then I would also just share as a friendly reminder that we did have another scheduling request email that came out from Anne Marie. And so if you haven't responded to that, please get to that soon. And I think that takes us to the end of our meeting. Our next meeting will be October 8th. Namal, were you talking?
Yeah, finally, unmuted.
Okay.
Sorry. So I had my one-on-one with Dr. Gandhi on the 13th through team, and then I attended FPS Foundation on the 18th, and then I attended September Brunch and Learn on the 18th as well. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Namal. So like I was saying, our next meeting is October 8th. It is now 6:22 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned.